favor, they grew and multiplied. We know they had the favor of God on their lives because the Bible tells us that when they went into Egypt, they went in with just only 70 people. But when they came out over 2 million strong. Y'all missed that. Let me bang this thing up and come at you again. I said when they went in with just 70 people. But when they came out over 2 million strong. Do you know what that tells me tonight? It tells me that it's not how you go in, but it's how you come out. I may go in little, but I'm coming out large. I may go in small, but I'm coming out spectacular. I may go in miniature, but I'm coming out mega. And somebody is in it right now, and it looks a little dark, but shake somebody's hand and tell them I ain't out yet. But when I come out, I'm going to come out better than I've ever been. They went in little. Just 70 people. And the Lord, have mercy, bless them. Pharaoh has a problem with Israel's dramatic futility. But please understand that Israel's growth, ladies and gentlemen, had nothing to do with them. Israel was just like we are. They were naughty by nature, bad by birth, and cantankerous by character. Their growth had nothing to do with them. But can I tell you what it had all to do with? 2 things. Number one, the favor of God. And then secondly, Dr. Lewis, it had to do with a promise that God made to Abraham in Genesis chapter 22, verse 17, when he said, look up at the stars, and I'm going to multiply your seed like the stars of the sky. Look at the grains of sand, and I'm going to bless you. It had all to do with the favor of God and a promise that God made to Abraham. And now they're blessed. But I got to pause parenthetically, Dr. Chapman, because when I think about my life and when I look at where the Lord has me, I have to realize that I'm not where I am because I did everything right. I'm like the Israelites. I'm still knowing the nature. I'll still go some places that I should not go, and I'll still do some things that I should not do. And ain't no need for y'all looking at me funny, because I'm not the only one in this room that's got some issues. I'm not the only one that struggles with sin. So don't sit here and look at me funny, because you're where you are because of the favor of God. You got houses you can't even afford. You got cars and the credit was jacked up. You got jobs that you didn't qualify. So you gotta stop and give God a little praise about where he has you at right now. Don't sit here and look stiff necked, stuck up and supercilious. Don't sit here and look haughty-headed and highfalutin. You better start singing if it had not been. I'm where I am because the Lord has been good to me. Everybody here right now has been good to you too. God bless Israel. That's in verse 7. Verse 8 says that there arose king over Egypt. The text says, which knew not Joseph. Now, the fact that the text says he didn't know Joseph, it does not mean that he had no cognition of Joseph as it relates to Joseph historically. Oh, he was aware of Joseph historically, but the text says that he knew not Joseph. It literally means that though he knew him historically, he did not want to attribute the success of Egypt to this little shepherd boy who came to Egypt and the Lord used him. He did not want to give it up to Joseph. He did not want to attribute any success of Egypt to Joseph. This new Pharaoh is just obsessed with the dramatic futility of Israel. So can I tell you what he did to handle Israel's dramatic futility? Well, he calls now for a destructive forum in order to handle Israel's dramatic futility. It's right there in verses 9 and 10 where he calls a bunch of bright and brilliant brothers in a room to say, we got to deal with Israel's dramatic futility. He convenes in a destructive forum in order to handle Israel's dramatic futility. Y'all got a minute, I'll tell you what they said in the room. He brings together a bunch of bright and brilliant brothers, and he says to them in verse 9, he says, behold. Now the word behold, you know it already means to look. He said, look at how they are growing. Look at how they are prospering. They are quite futile in that they are multiplying, and if we don't watch out, it won't be long before they'll outnumber us. So he says, we gotta look at it. In verse 10, watch what he tells these brothers. He says, now brethren, we gotta be wise about this thing. Verse 10 says, he said, and we gotta deal wisely with them, because if they keep growing, then it won't be long before they will hook up with our enemy. Do I have any Bible readers? And then they'll fight against us. I have two problems with this part of the text. In verse 9, it says, Pharaoh said, behold. Let me hear you say, behold. To behold means to look. Now, I've got a problem with that because the Bible shows me that Pharaoh is looking at Israel, but he don't even like them. He's jealous of their growth. Did y'all read that? He's jealous of their success, but he's looking at them. Pharaoh may have some cousins in Meridian, because there are some folk who don't like you, and my question, if you don't like me, why are you looking at me? You can't stand me, but every time I get some news, you know about it. You gotta do outfit, they shower, they get up high, they shower. They know where you work, they know where you go, but yet you don't like me. If you don't like me, quit stopping me. He said, look. He's watching. I ain't holding y'all too long now. He's watching what God is doing in somebody else's life. He's not concerning himself with Egypt, but he's watching. I told you he's got some cousins in Meridian. is like. But you don't even like me. But you're watching me. That's my first problem. Second problem is in verse 10. Pharaoh does not like Israel, but his plan is to stop them from growing and leaving. You don't like me, but you're scared. Y'all better read verse 10. He said they may hook up with somebody else and leave us. You don't like me, but you don't want me to leave. So since you don't want me to leave, I must be in your life because you're using me. And you better be aware of any relationship where it's about somebody else's benefit and not yours. He just wanted to use them, Pastor McDonald. He was just, it was for their benefit because verse 11 tells us that they had already built for Egypt treasure cities. You got the names right in your Bible. Python and Ramesses. But the more they afflicted them. I shout every time I get happy. The more they multiplied and grew. Well, they have concluded this destructive forum in order to handle Israel's dramatic futility. Can I tell you what they came out of the destructive forum with? In order to handle Israel's dramatic futility? Here's the solution they came up with. I tell you what, we're just going to distress the faithful. It's right in verse 11. So they set over them, I need some help, masters to afflict them with their burdens. They have a problem with Israel's dramatic futility. Verse 7, they kept growing. He calls for a destructive forum in verses 9 and 10 to handle that dramatic futility. Here's what they came out of the destructive forum with in verse 11. We're going to distress the faithful. Put more burden on them. We don't like the fact that they're growing. We do not like that dramatic futility. So we are going to distress the faithful. Wait a minute, Pharaoh. I thought you brought together a bunch of bright and brilliant brothers. And this is all you could come up with? Now watch this, church. To handle my growth, you didn't come up with a solution for you to grow, but you came up with a solution to stop me from growing. He